Welcome everyone to our weekday text gathering. Today is day 94 in the Circles text reading schedule, and we are beginning chapter 6 with the first 12 paragraphs, section 1, the message of the crucifixion. In the complete edition, you can find this on page 231. Robert, you said, and I agree, you said in your Course Companions commentary this morning that this is one of those sections where the mastery of the course really comes through. And so I hope that all of you who are attending today not only learn from the gathering, but take the time to read the section itself. There's a truly extraordinary reinterpretation of the crucifixion here that we'll talk about, and it's a message that feels particularly relevant to this time. A reminder once again that you can find the reading schedule, the handouts, the recordings, and the access link for these gatherings at circleofa.org/text gathering. Please share that link with anyone that you feel could benefit from coming together in this way. These gatherings are free and open to all. Also,
I'm seeing chats that say you're either dark or frozen.
I'm dark or frozen?
I'm seeing you and hearing you just fine.
I think sometimes it depends on the internet connection of the viewer. So,
oh, they're saying you're good now.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So yesterday I did, in fact, disappear because the internet went wonky here. So I hope that doesn't happen. It's just Zoom is overwhelmed. Things are we just have to have patience with everything. I do want to say, because we continue to have a lot of newbies we have new people every day in this gathering, which is wonderful, that we do study the Circle's Complete and Annotated Edition of A Course in Miracles, which you can find on Amazon, or you can also purchase it at circleofa.org. If you do not have a copy and you need one, you cannot purchase one due to financial hardship, please send us an email at info@circleofa.org. We will be happy to help. We do have some copies thanks to our donors that we can send. And speaking of donors, it is only because of our donors that we are able to offer these gatherings and to offer these complimentary copies of the course and to offer so many Course Companion scholarships. We have over 200 people on full or partial scholarships to our Course Companions program. That does not happen without the generosity of our donors. So if you feel moved to donate to this work, please do so at circleofa.org/donate. We would welcome any contribution that you feel inspired to make. So wherever you are in the world, please take a deep collective breath with me. I think we can all use that. And please bow your head in prayer. Dear God, thank you for the opportunity to come together today as loving friends and mighty companions on this remarkable path of light. We surrender this gathering to you and ask that it serve your purposes and be blessed by you. Dear God, we ask that you remove in us any blocks to the awareness of your presence, and may we learn to think like you so that we may be led to the highest vision of ourselves and one another. We ask that you use this time to plant within us the seeds of grace, that we may emerge from this experience more loving, peaceful, and humble beings. Purify our hearts that we may hold your peace, and join with us so our hands will be strong enough to give it. Help us to look out for each other and teach only love, for that is what we are. And we ask this so that we may be a source of miracles and healing within this group and within the world. And so it is. Amen.
Amen. We should mention our good news about our Zoom meetings next week.
Yes,
which is
we have finally sorted out, thanks to John, a volunteer John, we have finally, he's probably on here today.
He is, yeah.
That we have sorted out our Zoom issues, and we will be able to start on Monday in meeting format. And so that means we'll be able to see each other. So we have so many people here. We always see each other in tiny little squares, like
I
very,
think it's
very micro
25.
Brady bunch.
It's
But
25 per page. You have to scroll
right,
through.
right. So we normally host Course Companions classes in meeting format, and we miss seeing your faces. So we will have new links, new access
Right.
links, and that's very
This
important for
link won't
you to
work.
know starting next week. And so we really look forward to seeing your smiling faces. We've missed you.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Let me share
We
my.
said just almost in passing that Zoom Q had 600 and some odd people, and John and someone else volunteered to wait. And so thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, John said he said a prayer. He used the chat, not the phone. Well, we tried the chat, and he got through in like 10 minutes.
I know it was meant to be. Thank you,
Yeah.
John.
Yeah. Okay. So let me share my notes here. This is just a masterful section. I probably say that a lot about a lot of sections, but it's absolutely true of this section. Here he gives us not just a reasonable new interpretation of the crucifixion. It is profound and it is practical. And as far as I can tell, it's unique. For 2,000 years, you'd think we'd have more new ideas about something like the crucifixion. So it seems to me that to really appreciate this and let it sort of produce the change in us that it can, we should just reflect for a bit before we talk about this new meaning for the crucifixion. What meaning has the crucifixion had for us? And I mean that both in the past, maybe in our youth or childhood, and in the present. So I know we can't take sharing now just because of time constraints, and there's so many of us here. But in the past, I mean, I've gone through a whole journey with the crucifixion where I didn't relate to it that much when I was in the church, Presbyterian and Lutheran. And then I got spiritual, and it took on this new meaning, like the death of the lower self. And then gradually through the course, it's taken on this meaning that we're about to discuss. But it's been very different for me at different points in my life. Did you want to say anything about your history in relation to the crucifixion, Emily?
No, we don't have time for that.
Okay. So just reflect. Where have you been? Where are you now? What has it meant for you? What does it mean to you? The traditional meanings. Now, the big one we all know, that he died for our sins to pay off our debt to God with his blood. That's, everyone knows about that meaning. A secondary meaning that I think also everyone knows about is what we find in the Gospels where he says, take up thy cross and follow me. In other words, we should live a life of constant sacrifice where we're all carrying our crosses on the way to Golgotha. Not exactly a very happy meaning. As I mentioned, many of us then encounter the spiritual meaning, and it seems like everyone, if you're not doing the Christian meaning, just about everyone I've ever encountered talks about it as symbolizing the death of the lower self. You're taking your ego, you're taking your false self, your lower self, you're taking your bodily passions and identification, you're taking your intellect, your anything lower, and you're nailing it up, and it's dying so that something higher can be born in you, which sounds really cool, but also not particularly happy, right?
And we were talking about that in relation to the hero's journey. The spiritual community, and I include myself in this bunch, is enamored with Joseph Campbell's hero's that's in line with what you're saying about the crucifixion too. The child in you die, adult can be born.
Yeah, and it sounds great in the abstract, partially because it seems to fit the crucifixion and it's not the traditional meaning. I think we love both of those things. But when you stop thinking in the abstract, I think it gets a little bit more threatening. So I also would like us to ask ourselves, what is the emotional effect for us of the crucifixion, whatever it means to us? And I think, well, first of all, I feel I observe that Course in Miracles students in general are kind of distanced. They are backed off from Jesus, especially the historical Jesus. I think we generally have good feelings towards what I call Jesus 2.0, who is our invisible friend and teacher right now. But I feel like we are especially backed away from the historical Jesus. And I think the crucifixion is a lot of that. So think about it in your own case. Has the crucifixion made you want to distance yourself from Jesus? I mean, we're on the spiritual path, and we don't want to associate our journey with a dead, bleeding body nailed to a cross with a crown of thorns and a hole in his side. Who wants to think that's somehow relevant in my spiritual journey? So all that's just a way of setting us up for the meaning that the Course teaches. And we could talk about this at great length. It's really, I don't even know why I'm attempting this today. But its real meaning, according to this amazing section, is as a demonstration that the most outrageous assault did not matter. And in this view, it's not, as in the traditional view, the fact of the crucifixion that matters. Normally it's the fact that he had to suffer and that he got killed in that way. It wouldn't have mattered if there were any witnesses. Just him doing that was some kind of transaction with God that paved the way for all of us to go to heaven. Here, it's not the fact of what happened, it's how he responded to it that mattered. By responding with defenselessness and forgiveness, he was demonstrating the following truths, and these are all drawn from the section. You cannot be attacked. You cannot be persecuted. You cannot be hurt. You are perfectly immune. Attacks on you, therefore, do not matter. Now he acknowledges here, your body can be destroyed, of course. But anything that is destructible cannot be real. So you cannot be attacked, you cannot be persecuted, you cannot be hurt. Those are not truths about the physical body. Those are truths about you, the real you. And those are truths you can experience if you identify with the real you. So given all of that, nothing done to you can justify anger. And that's his repeated point throughout. And then the meaning goes on to include the fact that this is what you should teach to your brothers, that you can't be hurt, that you're perfectly immune. It teaches them that they are innocent because that means that they didn't hurt you. So if you are constantly acting like, I can't be hurt, then that means no one hurt you. And that means they're innocent. And it reinforces your perfect immunity in your own mind. So all of that in this section, Jesus is saying he was demonstrating with his crucifixion, and that's the whole message of the crucifixion. It's a really, really different message. Now, the significance of this is on two levels. One, the truths that he was demonstrating, but number two, the fact of the demonstration itself. Because what's a demonstration? A demonstration is something done that proves a certain point. It establishes a certain truth. Okay, so it's one thing to tell us you cannot be hurt, which the Course does in many places. It's another thing for him to pass through an experience in which he demonstrates that through his attitude. You know, an idea is just an idea. Once it's demonstrated, it becomes a fact. And then further, it's the fact that it was an extreme demonstration. He calls it an extreme example. He says the crucifixion is nothing more than an extreme example. Its value, like the value of any teaching device, lies solely in the kind of learning it facilitates. So notice that he's calling it an extreme example. He says, I elected, both for your sake and mine, to demonstrate that the most outrageous assault, as judged by the ego, did not matter. So notice he says, extreme example, the most outrageous assault. It's the extremity of it that in which its significance lies. Okay, and we'll just say what he says in the section. Doing it in an extreme case shows that we can do it in our far milder cases. That is the punchline. And he says it right here. And he says it like in 3 different places, but this is the best one. I undertook to show this was true in a very extreme case, merely because this would serve as a good teaching aid to those whose temptations to give in to anger and assault would not be as extreme. So he says you've been acting like you're being crucified for years, and we all have. We all feel crucified in this world. We're all feeling especially crucified these days from several angles, whether it's, you know, in terms of our jobs, in terms of our bank account, in terms of our health, in terms of people close to us who are experiencing their own challenges. It's like the world is crucifying us even more than usual right now. And he knows that. But he also knows that his challenge was immeasurably greater. If you think about all that was contained in the crucifixion, it was the worst threat to one's body that you could ever have, but it was more than that. You know, it was being betrayed by a close friend. It was being abandoned by the rest of one's friends. It was being turned on by one's people. It was being branded a criminal by the state and having to suffer the most humiliating, you know, what's considered most humiliating death. So it had not just the physical dimension, but the, you know, mental and emotional. It's one's place in society. It's one's place with others, with friends, with one's people. It's everything. So if he could demonstrate that he could not be hurt in that kind of situation, he knew that would serve as a good teaching aid for us in our far milder situations. And that, to me, makes the crucifixion an extremely positive symbol. It's not like, oh, there's that body hanging on that cross and it's so gruesome and it's so dark. And, you know, at best, it's the death of my lower self, which is not so great. Now it's, oh, the Course has been trying to teach me that I can't be hurt no matter what happens to me. And now he's telling me he demonstrated that under the most extreme conditions as a way to tell me that I could demonstrate it too under my milder conditions. What a beautiful idea. What a beautiful symbol. And how perfectly appropriate in the time that we're living through right now.
Robert, I think Eileen has made a comment that sums up our relationship to Jesus and part of the way that we back off and back away from him. She says it's hard to shake the idea that if I live the life that Jesus wants us to, I will at the very least be misunderstood and ultimately crucified.
Yeah, I think that that's a concern we have, sure. But you're going to be anyway. I mean, you just get misunderstood in this world. Um, and, we all have ways in which we feel crucified. Ultimately, all of our bodies die. It's kind of six of one, half a dozen of the other, from my standpoint.
Yeah, and John says something that I think is relevant here too. When I thought he said when I thought about the meaningless assaults that I have had compared to Jesus, I had to laugh at how silly they are. And I love the beginning of this section in the first paragraph where it says, the relationship to anger and attack is obvious, but the inevitable association of anger and fear is not always so clear. Anger cannot occur unless you believe that you have been attacked, that the attack was unjust, and you are no way responsible for it. I think where we get into that anger and that attack is when we feel that we've been attacked and that it's unjust.
Yeah,
And Jesus is the ultimate example because the attacks on him were very unjust. And in our conversations that we've had on the podcast about Jesus, we've talked about the way that nobody would know his name if he responded to attack with attack, if he met anger with anger, if in the Garden of Gethsemane he said, Peter, cut off the other ear of the Roman guard. And so he's just such an incredible model for our time and all time.
yeah. And I think in terms of, if we follow his way, we'll have something like that happen to us. I think that the thing to be thinking instead is if we follow his way, we have these truths and that example. And so we can meet the inevitable misunderstandings that we'll receive in this world, the inevitable things that look like crucifixion that will be on the receiving end with these truths that I can't really be hurt. So let's think of, when we think of following him, let's think of that, following him in learning these truths that we can't be hurt. And then whatever happens to us, it becomes kind of irrelevant because we won't feel hurt.
Yeah, and you make a good point about the fact that the misunderstandings are going to happen anyway. So it's not like you follow Jesus and that all of a sudden creates misunderstanding. It's like it's going to happen anyway. The real question is, how do you respond to it?
Right. And when it happens, do you want to be left with nothing to really protect your mind from it? It's true that, there, when you put yourself out there, it's a different level. That's true. I mean, he put himself out there. He met a whole different level of challenge. But life is full of challenges. When they happen, do we want to be left with no real defense for our peace of mind? Okay,
We have
we
some
have an
questions.
exercise. Okay. Do you
Well,
want
let me just say this from Lorraine. She said because this sums up, I think, a feling that's out there too. The traditional crucifixion idea has made me feel guilty. And that's also part of our dissociation from Jesus, is that
exactly?
we feel guilty that he had to quote unquote take on this punishment for us. But this reframe is incredible too, because it gives us insight into what he was thinking through it. And so we have no need to feel guilty as a result.
Exactly. I mean, this shows the power of interpretation. When you slap a meaning on something, that meaning is more powerful than the thing you slapped it on. The meaning is everything. And we, way back, I think it started with his followers. They slapped on it the meaning of, well, he was a sacrifice somehow. Um, and that just took hold in the collective mind and has continued to this day. But he's now putting a completely different meaning on it that takes away entirely that old meaning. He wasn't making himself a sacrifice of any kind. He was being an incredibly powerful teacher, teaching his way. It's the same way he's teaching us in the course. You can't be hurt, so you can meet everything with defenselessness and forgiveness. What a great teaching example.
There's a few other questions, but we can do the exercise and get the questions on the other side of it.
Okay. Okay. So I want to take you through an exercise. Take a few minutes for this. Let's begin. It'll help if you close your eyes, but it's up to you. You might want to see these words here on the screen. Bring to mind how you might be feeling crucified right now. That's probably not going to be too hard. Think about maybe different ways in which you're feeling crucified right now. A lot of them will be tied to the epidemic, the pandemic. Might be financial, might be in terms of your health, your livelihood, your lifestyle, isolation, people you care about. It goes on and on. Now think of Jesus' crucifixion as an extreme example geared towards your challenges that showed that the most outrageous assault did not matter. See him passing through the ordeal with a serene look of peace on his face. Hear his words from the cross. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Then hear him say this to you. If I could see myself as immune to attack under these extreme conditions, then surely you can see yourself as similarly immune in the face of far milder conditions. If I could do it then, you can do it now. And now say to yourself, in your mind after me, I cannot be attacked. I cannot be hurt. Anything that is destructible, you can fill in whatever you're afraid of being destroyed or having destroyed. Anything that is destructible cannot be real. Its destruction, therefore, does not justify anger. Like Jesus, I will teach my own perfect immunity. And know that it cannot be assailed. Amen.
That was beautiful, Robert. You know, if the course is our path, I'm really struck by this today, because if the course is our path, then Jesus is our teacher. And can we imagine him holding the grievances that we hold in our lives?
Yeah.
Today, we just continue to carry the smallest things forward, and I can just absolutely see, in light of his life, why he was the first to complete his part perfectly. Okay, so Michael says, how does anyone deal with the very quote unquote real, in the sense that we feel it in the body? Does someone deal with a very real reality in the sense that we feel it in the body of something like cancer, or even a more horrific attack on the body? How does that square with this?
Well, I mean, it's the kind of thing that this section and the exercise I just did is made for. Not that this will provide all the answers you need. I mean, we still need to seek guidance about what to do behaviorally in the face of cancer or in the face of an assault. But one of the most important things we can do is identify with that in us that is indestructible, that is immune, that can't be hurt. And if we identify with that, then we can pass through it differently. And I know there are challenges that feel so big that it feels like that's out of reach. But hopefully we can just work all the harder on identifying with that.
And we have a few questions, so we'll have to do a lightning round again. Lynn says, isn't this a time of understanding that the I being talked about is other than anything physical? Most I's are an identification of the body, with the body, which is not true. I'm finding this parallels with lesson 94, I am as God created me.
Yeah, what the Course teaches is you are identified currently with your body and with your ego, but the I, the you that is identified with those things is not those things. It is literally a limitless divine being and always has been and always will be. So the you that is in you, or the I, as Lynn's saying, is not the things it's identifying with.
Jackie says, I'm so thrilled to hear this morning. All of my resentments stem from thinking that I can be attacked. I've known this on an intellectual level, but this is deeply being accepted in my soul. Oh, thanks,
That's wonderful.
Jackie.
That's really wonderful. Yeah.
So Terry says, on the other hand, I feel that we shouldn't put up with violence or abuse from anyone or allow it to happen and stand by and watch someone or some part of society being systematically abused. How do we do that while still accepting Jesus's example? Great question.
Yeah, I think that there are three kind of levels here. One is, if you are faced with violence, ideally you could rise to the level of what Jesus did, where you don't think I'm under threat. You realize you're invulnerable and you respond in some way that expresses that. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. Number two, though, we just have to be appropriate to where we are. And I think that, for people who are in violent situations, they shouldn't take away the message that, it's important they just stay in that situation and keep putting up with it. You have to seek your own guidance about where you're at. Don't keep putting yourself in harm's way because of the thought that this is the holy thing to do. Number three, I think it becomes a whole different situation when we're talking about being a witness to other people at the effect of violence. Our message to them should not be identify with the example of Jesus and just don't feel hurt. Our message to them should be to, in some way, move to protect them. And so I think it's very different when it's someone else. Don't just give them a great spiritual message, do something.
Okay. Eileen says, it feels like I can't help but defend or protect my body and mind while being crucified or attacked. The remedy of I am not a body seems like such a stretch in the moment of attack. I can get it later, but sometimes in the moment of attack, it's almost impossible. Love the exercise. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's just life, I mean, so the more we do it afterwards or beforehand, the better we'll get at in the moment. Our ability to do it in the moment is largely a function of what we've been doing outside that moment.
Yeah. Okay, well, there's just still so much more to say about this section, and I feel like I could just go through it and read the whole thing because it's extraordinary. As I said in the intro, please read this section. And I'm just struck all over again by what an extraordinary piece of writing that it is. So please read the section. We're out of time. Thank you for all of your kind comments in the chat. Jim says, every day I join here and bring my wholehearted self and am sped along my path home. You have become one of my giant stride lessons. Thank you. So there's some really, really nice, very sweet comments in the chat today. So Thank you for being here, and we hope you have a wonderful weekend. We will see you back on
We'll see
Monday
you.
morning. We will literally see you on Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern. Please share that link, circleofa.org/text gathering, with any course student that you feel, once again, would benefit from this. We look
Post the
for,
notes, right?
I'm sorry?
We'll post the notes from today. Someone's
Yes,
asking.
we post the recordings, we post the handouts at that same link as well. And so we hope you have a safe weekend, and just love each other, and we will see you on Monday. Bye for now.